The diamond-encrusted chandeliers of the Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom sparkled almost as brightly as my sister's eyes when James slipped the ring on her finger. Sarah had worked so hard for this moment, putting herself through nursing school, working double shifts, and building a life despite our humble beginnings. She deserved this happiness. If only Diane Churchill would stop sneering from the front row. I watched James's mother from my position as maid of honor, noting how she clutched her Hermes bag like a shield against our family's perceived poverty. The woman hadn't stopped making subtle digs since the engagement was announced 6 months ago. "At least the girl is pretty," she'd said at the engagement party, loud enough for Sarah to hear. "The beauty fades faster than old money grows." What Diane didn't know, what nobody knew except my board of directors, was that I just completed a silent takeover of Churchill Industries. 3 years of careful planning, proxy purchases, and strategic investments had given me controlling interest in the company her late husband had built. The paperwork was finalized yesterday. On Monday, I'd be announced as the new CEO. But today was Sarah's day, and I intended to let her have it. At least that was the plan. Until Diane grabbed the microphone during the reception. "I'd like to say a few words about our new addition to the family." Her voice dripped with fake sweetness, her third martini evident in her slight sway. James tensed beside Sarah. "Mother, perhaps now isn't." "Oh, hush, darling." Diane waved him off. "We all know why she's here. A nurse from the wrong side of town, suddenly interested in my son right after he made junior partner." She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "I did some digging, dear. Trailer park childhood. Food stamps. A father in prison. Did you think we wouldn't find out?" The room went silent. Sarah's face crumpled, tears threatening to ruin her perfect makeup. James stood, fury in his eyes, but his mother wasn't finished. "I won't have some poor trash gold digger ruining our family name. So here." She pulled out an envelope, tossing it onto their table. "A prenup. Sign it now, or the wedding's over." I'd spent years in corporate boardrooms facing down the worst kinds of business sharks. I learned to control my temper, to play the long game. But watching my baby sister's dream day shatter pushed me past my limit. "Enough." My voice cut through the silence as I stood. "You want to talk about family history, Diane? Let's talk." "Emily, don't," Sarah whispered, but I was already moving. "You know what I did before coming here?" I picked up the prenup, making a show of examining it. I was reviewing some interesting documents about Churchill Industries, particularly the company's founding in 1982. Diane's face paled slightly. "That's none of your—" "Did you know," I continued, raising my voice to address the shocked guests, "that the initial capital came from an embezzlement scheme? That Richard Churchill stole from his first company to start his own?" I smiled at Diane. "Of course you did. You were his secretary then, weren't you? Before the convenient divorce from his first wife." "How dare you?" Diane stumbled forward. "You know nothing about—" "I know everything, Diane. Every shell company, every cooked book, every skeleton in the Churchill closet. Would you like me to continue?" James was staring at his mother, realization dawning. "Mom, what is she talking about?" "She's lying," Diane spat. "This trash and her trash sister are trying to ruin us." I pulled out my phone and brought up an email. "This is from your company's board of directors, dated yesterday." Should I read it aloud? The part of the new majority shareholder. For the first time, fear crept into Diane's eyes. You're bluffing." "Emily," Sarah stood, touching my arm. "What's going on?" I handed her the phone. Let her read the email confirming my new position. Watched her eyes widen. "You see, Diane," I turned back to my sister's tormentor. "While you were busy looking down on our trailer trash background, you missed something important. I took that childhood, watching our mother work 3 jobs, seeing our father destroyed by your husband's financial schemes, and I built something big enough to buy your family's company right out from under you." The ballroom erupted in whispers. Diane swayed, her face ashen. "As of Monday morning, I'm your new boss, and we're going to have a very interesting conversation about your position with the company." "You can't," she started. "I can. I did. And if you don't sit down and shut up for the rest of my sister's wedding, I'll start that conversation right now." Diane collapsed into her chair, the fight draining out of her. James looked between his mother and me, then turned to Sarah. "Did you know?" Sarah shook her head, tears flowing freely now. "I had no idea." Emily never. She always said she was doing well in business. But I wanted to tell you, I said softly, but I couldn't risk the takeover getting out. And I wanted you to have a real relationship with James, not one complicated by business. James surprised us all by laughing. All this time, my mother was worried about gold diggers. And my fiance's sister literally owns our company. He pulled Sarah close. I'd say that makes us the ones marrying up. The tension broke. Guests laughed, then applauded. Sarah hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. Because you needed to know that James loved you for you, not for anything else. I wiped away her tears carefully, preserving her makeup. Now let's get back to your wedding. We can deal with Diane on Monday. As the music resumed and James led Sarah to the dance floor, I caught Diane's eye across the room. She sat alone now, her social circle having quickly discovered urgent reasons to be elsewhere. I walked over and sat beside her. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, I said quietly, "We'll discuss your retirement package. It can be generous and quiet, or it can be public and messy. Your choice." "You planned this," she hissed. "All of it." "No, Diane, you did this. Every time you looked down on us, every time you made Sarah feel small, you taught me exactly what kind of person you were." I stood up, "And now you've learned what kind of person I am." I left her there and joined the celebration, watching my sister dance with her new husband. She was radiant, her happiness no longer dimmed by Diane's presence. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just succeeding, it's succeeding so completely that you can protect the people you love. And on Monday, I had a company to run. Monday morning arrived with a flurry of press releases and panicked calls from Churchill Industries board members. I sat in what used to be Richard Churchill's office, now stripped of its hunting trophies and pretentious oil paintings, watching Diane pace in front of my desk. "You can't do this," she repeated for the 5th time. "This company is our legacy." "Was your legacy," I corrected, opening a thick folder. "Now, about those irregularities in the charitable foundation you've been managing." The door burst open. James strode in, still in his honeymoon suit, looking like he'd come straight from the airport. Sarah followed, concern etched on her face. "James," Diane turned to her son. "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Bali." "Funny thing about honeymoons," he said, loosening his tie. "They're less relaxing when you discover your entire family fortune is built on fraud." I hadn't expected them back so soon. "Sarah, I told you to enjoy your honeymoon. I can handle this." My sister gave me that stubborn look I knew too well. "This affects all of us now. We're family." "Family?" Diane laughed bitterly. "You've destroyed our family." "No, Mother," James cut in. "You did that. I spent all night reviewing the documents Emily sent me. The fake charities? The offshore accounts? Did you really think I wouldn't find out eventually?" I pulled out another document. "Your son is now head of legal affairs, Diane. A position he's actually qualified for, unlike the people you've been appointing." "You're taking her side?" Diane collapsed into a chair. "After everything I've done for you." "Done for me." James slammed his hands on my desk. "You've been stealing from children's charities. The foundation was supposed to help families like Saras, families struggling to make ends meet. Instead, you've been funneling money into your private accounts for years." Sarah moved to her husband's side, calming him with a touch. I'd seen their dynamic over the past year, her quiet strength balancing his passionate intensity. They were good for each other. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, pushing a contract across the desk. "You'll resign as foundation director, return the embezzled funds, and sign an NDA. In return, we won't press charges, and you'll get a generous retirement package." "And if I refuse?" I smiled. "Then I release everything to the SEC. Every document, every transaction, every penny you stole from children who needed it." "You'd send your mother-in-law to prison?" Diane tried appealing to Sarah. "Darling, surely you don't want—" "Don't." Sarah's voice was steel. "Don't pretend to care about family now. My sister built something real. She helped people." "What did you build, besides lies?" Diane's facade cracked. For a moment, I saw past the designer clothes and society manners to the scared secretary who'd clawed her way up by any means necessary. "I did it for James," she whispered. "Everything was for James." "No, Mother." James sat beside her. "You did it for yourself, and now it's time to make it right." She signed. Of course she signed. People like Diane always choose comfort over conscience. As security escorted her out, she turned back one last time. You think you've won? That you belong in this world? No, Diane, I replied. I'm going to change this world, starting with your company. Once she was gone, James let out a long breath. Well, that's one way to start a marriage. Sarah hugged him. I'm sorry about your mother. I'm not. Not anymore. He kissed her forehead. But we should talk about what happens next. All of us. I nodded. Churchill Industries needs restructuring. Real charitable work, ethical practices, better employee benefits. James, I want you overseeing the legal transformation. And what about us? Sarah asked quietly. Emily, you spent years planning this, keeping secrets. Are we done with that? The question hurt, but I deserved it. No more secrets. From now on, we do this together. As a family. A real family, James added. Not the kind my mother pretended we were. My phone buzzed. The board was waiting for their first meeting with the new CEO. Time to face the old guard, the men who let Diane and her husband run their corrupt empire for decades. Ready to shake things up? I asked them. Sarah grinned. The nurse and the lawyer helping the CEO rebuild a company. Sounds like a bad TV show. Or a good one, James smiled. Depending on how we write it. We walked into the boardroom together. The members, all men over 60, stared at us like we were children playing dress-up in their world. Gentlemen, I announced, let's talk about change. 3 months later, Churchill Industries had a new name, a new mission, and a new reputation. The charitable foundation, now run by Sarah alongside her nursing career, was actually helping families in need. James had restructured our legal department to fight for corporate accountability. Diane, last I heard, had moved to Florida. Sometimes she drunk-dialed James, alternating between threats and pleas. He stopped answering after the first month. The company stock was up. Employee satisfaction was at an all-time high. And every morning, I got to work alongside the 2 people I trusted most in the world. You know, Sarah said one evening as we shared dinner in my office, I never thanked you properly for everything. You never had to. But I want to. She took my hand, not just for the wedding or Diane, but for showing me that our background doesn't define us, that we can succeed without becoming like them. James raised his glass. To rewriting the story, and to family, the real kind. I looked at my sister, confident, compassionate, finally treated with the respect she deserved. At my brother-in-law, who'd chosen truth over privilege. At the skyline beyond my window, where our company's new logo stood as a beacon of change. To family, I agreed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning, it's winning while staying true to yourself. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating your enemies, but in building something better from the ruins of their empire. Diane had called us trash. Instead, we'd become treasure, and we were just getting started. 6 months after the takeover, I learned that revenge has a way of circling back. Diane might have been in Florida, but she hadn't been idle. The first warning came during our quarterly board meeting. I was presenting our new ethical investment strategy when Trevor Phillips, one of the oldest board members, interrupted with a smirk. Fascinating presentation, Ms. Bennett. Almost as fascinating as these photos that arrived this morning. He slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were surveillance photos of our father, not in prison where he was supposed to be, but walking free in Mexico. Along with documentation suggesting I'd been funneling company money to him. Diane says hello, Trevor added. I kept my face neutral, even as my heart raced. Is this a coup attempt, Trevor? Because I've got to say, it's rather amateur. Amateur, he laughed. Your father's mysterious release, suspicious transfers to offshore accounts, it's enough to trigger an SEC investigation. One that would tank our stock and your reputation. Sarah, who had been quietly observing from the corner during her lunch break, stood up. Except there's one problem with your story. James appeared in the doorway, right on cue, with 2 FBI agents. Our father died 3 months ago in prison, I said softly. These photos are fake, and those transfers were made by someone using stolen credentials, someone desperate enough to commit fraud. Trevor's smirk vanished. You can't prove. Actually, James interrupted. We can. See, when you're the head of legal affairs, people tell you interesting things. Like how a certain board member met with my mother in Miami last month. The FBI agents moved forward. Mr. Phillips, we have some questions about your recent wire transfers. As they led Trevor away, the remaining board members sat in stunned silence. I remained standing, my voice clear and firm. Anyone else receiving messages from Diane? No? Then let's continue discussing how we're going to help people instead of stealing from them. Later that evening in my office, Sarah poured 3 glasses of whiskey. How did you know? She asked. About Trevor and Diane. Because I know Diane, James answered for me. She always underestimates people she considers beneath her. Never thought we'd check Miami security cameras. I took a slow sip. She wasn't just trying to ruin me. She wanted to destroy everything we've built. The scholarship programs, the affordable housing initiatives. The medical clinics, Sarah added. Her pet project had been opening free clinics in underserved areas. All of it. I walked to the window, watching the city lights. But she made a mistake. She thought we'd play by her rules. James loosened his tie. You know she won't stop. Not completely. No, I agreed. But maybe it's time we ended this permanently. Sarah straightened. What are you thinking? Remember those offshore accounts Trevor mentioned? They're real, just not ours. I've been tracking Diane's hidden assets since the takeover. Everything she stole, every account she thought was secret. James whistled. That's why you kept her old assistant on payroll. Margaret was happy to help once I showed her the retirement package Diane had cheated her out of. I turned back to them. By tomorrow morning, every cent Diane stole will be returned to the foundation, with interest. She'll be ruined, Sarah said quietly. She'll be justice, James corrected. There's a difference. My phone buzzed, Diane's number. I put it on speaker. You think you're so clever, she hissed, but I made this company what it is. No, Diane. You made it what it was. We made it what it is. I looked at Sarah and James. Check your accounts. All of them. A moment of silence, then the sound of frantic typing. What have you done? Her voice shook. Justice, I replied simply. Goodbye, Diane. I hung up as her screams began. Sarah raised her glass. To karma. To family, James added. To both, I finished. The next morning, headlines announced the mysterious return of millions to various charities. Diane Churchill was notably unavailable for comment, having apparently decided to extend her Florida vacation indefinitely. 1 year after the wedding that started it all, we gathered for a different kind of celebration, the opening of the Bennett Churchill Memorial Hospital. Named not for Diane's family, but for our mother, who'd worked herself to exhaustion to give her daughters a chance at a better life. Sarah, now director of medical outreach, cut the ribbon. James stood beside her, their first child growing visible beneath her dress. And I watched from the podium, thinking about cycles broken and new legacies built. Someone once called us trash, I told the crowd. But trash is what you throw away. What we are, what everyone here is treasure. Something valuable. Something worth investing in. The applause was deafening. Later, a young girl approached Sarah during the reception. Is it true, she asked, that I can be a nurse even though my family's poor? Sarah knelt down, speaking with the same compassion that had first won James's heart. You can be anything, and we're going to help you get there. I caught James wiping his eyes and pretended not to notice. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning the game, it's changing the rules entirely. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemies, but in building something so beautiful that their hatred becomes irrelevant. We'd done both. And somewhere in Florida, I hoped Diane was watching, because we weren't just succeeding. We were redefining success itself. Not bad for a couple of kids from the wrong side of town.